which brings up my big number one why I did not want to live there anymore.
Oh, hey there. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening in from. Yeah, welcome to the BS Buddies podcast. My name's Ian. That fellow over there is Joel. Happy to have you around. Tell your folks we says hi. Come on over. We got some hot dish. There's some cold beer over there in the fridge. Grab one, pop the top, sit down, and come and enjoy with us this topic today. Joel, what are we talking about, huh?
With that accent, you'd assume we're talking about our experience in the Midwest, which not this time, unfortunately, but we're talking about the grand old place of Fargo, North Dakota, specifically.
And specifically why you should probably stay away from it.
Probably, depending on what you're looking for, and we're going to help you decide if it's for you or not. So for me, I lived in the Fargo, North Dakota, Moorhead, Minnesota. I might say FM area a lot. That's what I mean by that because they're so close together. I lived there for 5 to 6 years roughly, and I got a lot of insight.
All kinds of insight.
I first moved up there my first year out of high school. I went to college at the tech school up there. That's a whole story in itself. That was not the best time for me. After that, I ended up working at a retail job, which another thing that I could probably make a full episode on that we'll skip for now, but spent about 3.5 years there roughly. And then had a couple other jobs while I was in the area. I think I moved about 4 or 5 times in the area. I lived in Moorhead, then I moved to Fargo, then I moved to a different place in Fargo, then I moved back to Moorhead, and then I moved in that apartment complex. So yeah, 5 times.
Yeah, there you go. That's pretty handy.
One thing about the last place I lived in that I just thought of, I got a lot of notes and I'm going to try and hit all the hot spots in Fargo as best I can, as quickly as I can. But right across the street from where I lived, the last place I lived, which was the worst place I've ever lived, but they had a Hornbachers across the street. For those of you who don't know, it's one of those like little chain grocery
a bunch
stores.
Of people dressed up as Sebastian Bach, the composer, classical music composer, and they're all horny. Hornbachers, kind of in the name.
Not quite that, but I know in
it's a grocery store, but kind of the same thing.
I know in Arizona it'd be like Fries, that like Fry from Futurama, that type of fry. I don't know other areas, but yeah, it's just like the little chain grocery stores that are only specific to your area. But that was always nice. So whenever I had a grocery shop, just walk across the street, come back. So I'm going to go with some of the things I liked about Fargo, because there's a lot of things that I wasn't too fond of in the area. And a lot of these have to do with food, honestly. There's a lot of good places to eat in Fargo, and it's a wide range for me. You got Frying Pan, which is like cheaper, better Perkins. Like
Perkins is even a Midwest thing, so you're gonna have to explain to the folks what Perkins is. Imagine Denny's.
And if you don't know Denny's, imagine IHOP, but way
Denny's.
better. But Frying Pan was always great. Cheap food, you get a lot of it, and it's good. Another place, couple other places, I just saw that these are both kind of morning things. Sandy's Donuts is staple up there. You got 3 of them. Some of the best. What? You're looking at me confused.
I've never. What is that? Where is that?
Sandy's Donuts.
Never been.
Oh my.
Never been. I've also never been to Krispy Kreme, just to make some of you mad out there. I've never had a Krispy Kreme donut.
Well, we don't really have a lot of Krispy Kremes up here.
No, we don't.
But Sandy's Donuts, I know you've been to Fargo quite a bit, and you
I
need
have.
some Sandy's donuts. It's some of the best donuts I've ever had. And that's one thing I really miss about Fargo. Like there was
I just
one,
want to say I don't like donuts with sand on them. I typically prefer cinnamon or sugar or one of them spices that actually fit with a donut.
I'm ignoring this guy. Uh, I at one point, Debbie and I ordered the Big Sandy, which it was like a
Just a
foot
bucket of
long.
sand.
Shut up.
It's a bucket of sand. They give you a funnel and they're like, here, have fun. They stick it in your mouth and pour.
I
Oh,
I
this is
really I love the donuts from there, but Ian makes me want to not talk about it. But they had a Big Sandy donut. Do not pipe up. It was like a foot long by a foot wide and just a giant donut. But the other place, so we can stop talking about this, was Tropical Smoothie Cafe. And there's not any around where I am. I think they're in the cities, but it's one place I remember going to with a couple buddies of mine. Like we would go work out and then go get a smoothie and some breakfast food.
Do
It
the
was just
smoothies come with a little umbrella?
no, but they had like an umbrella
Fake
design on the.
advertising. They're not tropical. Fake. I don't want it.
It's Fargo. What do you expect?
I expect authenticity.
Another place, a nighttime place, and there's quite a few bars that I went to that had good food, uh, or I just enjoyed. Uh, Number one on my list would be Billiards in Moorhead. That was our favorite go-to. They have great food, great atmosphere, and obviously billiards. They have like 20 pool tables, and pool was pretty cheap. Loved going there, but if we were there and then wanted to just go across the Red River into Fargo, we would go to Insomnia Cookies. And oh my goodness, it's the best cookies I've ever bought. Like crumble is good, but when you
Okay, I
want
know this
if you
place.
want a cookie at 2 in the morning, which we never did, but we could have. If you wanted a chocolate chip cookie at 2 in the morning after you're done bar hopping, there you go, Insomnia Cookies.
This
They were,
this is the place to go. Isn't that place right next to Slurp Ramen? Isn't
yeah,
that place
it's,
right next to a
I mean,
ramen
it's
shop?
right down Broadway. I think their hours were like 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. So, like, they knew they were downtown. There's bars everywhere, drunk people and cookies. Great,
They
great
are they
combination.
are in fact catching the nighttime crowd. I have to say, a fun play or a fun bar that I was at up there was Windbreak. Because there you can get the gigantic margaritas, and I mean like you
The,
could fit a bowling
Debbie,
ball in these glasses.
Debbie's had one. We have not had good experiences there. Um, I I don't want to go into detail, but to me it was like the I don't go out much, and like my buddies were going there. I didn't know like there was a cover charge, so, and I had no understanding of what that was, and the bouncer just made me feel like an idiot. So I'm like, I hate this place. And then Debbie went and had a terrible experience. So to me, windbreak is awful. Ian,
I can't speak to how it is recently because the last time I was there was like 4 or 5 years ago now.
that was
Five,
probably me
probably
as well.
probably closer to 5 or 6 years ago now, and it wasn't too bad when we were there because we walked in after everything, and the table that we had picked was right next to this other group, and they were like, "We ordered two of these margaritas, but we can't finish the other one. Do you guys want it?" And us being a bunch of group of dumb guys, were like, "Sure." And we'll take this big old tub of like freaking tequila and ice, and just went to town on that bad boy, and pretty soon busting out some moves that nobody on that dance floor had ever seen in this universe or the next. So didn't go terrible. Well, I can't say it didn't go terrible. I don't know. You'd have to go back in time and ask the me that was there how it went. Because honestly,
Uh,
let's put it like that.
One place they had that I heard was really good was Spicy Pie Pizza, and I had it, and it wasn't great. Is that pretty disappointing? Also,
Well,
They have
Typically, I like my pie to be
hold on. I got one other pizza place. Uh, Dwayne's House of Pizza is also local there, and I heard it was really good for my sister who used to live in the area. And then my dad and I went when he came up, and it was just really disappointing. Like they had changed so much in like a few years that it wasn't the same, and we went when it wasn't the same.
You know, I was just going to comment on your spicy pie pizza is that typically I like my pie to be sweet, like pumpkin or apple. So I can't imagine spicy pie would be good. And to combine pie and pizza, well, that just seems like a folly that was bound to end in disaster from the start. So I don't know what you were expecting going to a place like spicy pie pizza, but
I give up on this guy. Um,
you're welcome.
and
At this
then
point, I think we might be selling Fargo more than detracting from it.
oh
Don't go
oh
to
just
Fargo.
wait,
There's nothing there.
just wait. Johnny Carino's, and which is an Italian place, and right down the road is Kobe's. Kobe's is amazing, hibachi bar and restaurant. And then the other thing that I really like, there's a couple other things, but the Shields there is really cool because it has a Ferris wheel in the middle of it. Indoor Ferris wheel in the middle of a Shields, which is awesome. Uh, I guess the one other thing I really like, the Fargo Moorhead Redhawks, base independent baseball team there. Went to quite a few games. Growing up, I really wanted to play for them, but it just didn't pan out that way. And one of my teammates from high school actually played for them for one season, which is kind of cool. We ended up going to a baseball game during COVID as well. Me and one of the guys I worked with, and it was really nice because there was no one there. So it's just sit wherever you want. Like
Sweet. That's
straight
always
up, there
nice.
was like two guys over there, and um, funnily enough, the guy I was with, he's like, "Wait, is that who I think it is?" And it was the only other person at the stadium besides the two guys over there. He's like, "Hey, I know that guy," and went and go sat down and talked to him. I didn't know him, but we just kind of chatted. All worked for the same company, but uh, yeah, I miss that. Going to Red Hawks games. I know I live in the Eau Claire area now, and I know there's the Express, which is kind of an indie ball team. I just haven't gone to see them yet. Now we're getting to
Now the detractions begin.
yeah, which is kind of why I left. Kind of not. It was mostly the reason why I left was mostly due to my fiance having a school that we had to, I mean, live by. And in Minnesota, there was one school, but it's in our least favorite town in Minnesota, so it was a no. And we could have went to, and she could have went to NDSU, which North Dakota State University, the Bison are in Fargo, but it wasn't exactly what her field was going to be. But decided on this area. It's close to family. We're close enough, but also just a new start and beautiful out here. Fargo, there's okay.
Let's
I
start out with the number one problem. Every single spring when the snow melts, the frickin' river floods. Because
there's
Fargo is
that.
situated beautifully on the Red River, one of the few rivers in the world that flows north. And every single spring, okay, well, not this spring, because this is a really weird winter where we have no snow. But otherwise, prior every single spring, that stupid river floods and it makes navigating the city nigh impossible
Yep.
because for those who have not heard before in previous episodes, Fargo, and especially the North Dakota Minnesota border right there, is flat. Right? If you got a notebook or a book near you, pick it up and hold it up to your eyes and look across it and just pretend that you are looking across the plains of the upper Midwest because that's what it's like. So the river is not so much a valley through the land as it is just a little dip. And every spring that sucker rises like 13 feet, and you can't go to like a quarter of the city. It's just underwater. Not
So
fun.
the other big issue, like yes, that's the number one, and like they every year people bring up the flood of 97, which was like the worst flood they have ever had. I've I was told like 3 years in a row, like people coming in to the place I worked and saying, "Oh, this is projected to be like that flood, like it I hope you live on the top floor of your apartment because it's going to be awful." And it was never that bad. Like you could still drive across the bridge and it's not like it's flooded. Like you can see like trails down below are flooded out, but I mean that just became commonplace. But
I was
with
born
what
up in Fargo in '97, so that flood was actually just the omen of my arrival. I'd just like to put that out there. The Lord said, "Let the problem be unto this world," and then after I was born, whoosh, the waters flooded, and ever since it's been used as the staple to compare all other floods against. I'm happy to have that moniker upon myself.
going back to what Ian said, like it's flat, but one thing I found out and in the FM area, it's not like it's flat, it actually like caves in on itself in a sense.
Concave.
Like Moorhead side and Fargo side, like go dip down into the Red River, which brings up my big number one why I did not want to live there anymore. The weather, the wind specifically. Wind is my least favorite type of weather. And every other day we would have a wind advisory. I kid you not. In the summer, it's like 75, sunny, but it's
Watch out for that wind chill.
25-mile-per-hour winds for no good reason. And when I was up there, like I wanted to learn how to skateboard and like get into that more. There were some days I would just stand on the board and be pushed by the
Hell,
wind.
you could learn how to parasail. There's not even an ocean or a body of water up there big enough to do that, but you could. You could stand out in an open field with a boogie board underneath your feet and a freaking kite on a string, and whoop, you could fly all around them fields, man.
There,
Surfing the corn tops and reaching down, grabbing an ear and throwing it at passing cars.
there was that's a image in my brain.
You have to imagine somebody parasailing with a boogie board over a sea of cornfields. He reaches down, plucks one off, and got this nerd through your window as you're driving down the interstate.
um, I can't even remember what I was gonna say. Um, oh,
Well,
there was one day it was 40 degrees. It was raining, but the wind was so bad it was saying that we were in a blizzard warning. Like it was barely raining and I'm checking my phone and it's like blizzard warning. I'm looking around, it's like
wait a minute.
yeah, like there's no snow. Yeah, it's blowing like 35 miles an hour, but that's just cuz it's a Wednesday.
We
And
you were just like that scene from Forrest Gump when he's talking about we've been through every kind of rain there is. Sideways rain, and it's just you standing out there in the wind blowing the rain like straight through one ear and out the other.
especially the
You
last
could
job I
hold
had
it
in
up
Fargo,
sideways.
that was such a disaster when it was like if we got a shipment in and it was windy, just because one of the lots that we would unload trucks in was a dirt lot. So it's just a sandstorm as you're trying to see things with a forklift that are 500 pounds and don't want to drop it.
You're out there dressing like you're from Mad Max. You got your scarf on. You're wearing some dark welding goggles. Just,
I really should have.
just
The other, one of the other things is like there's stuff to do, but it's only on two streets. If you're on Broadway or if you're on 13th Avenue, there's stuff to do. Otherwise, there's nothing.
there's nothing. The rest of it is either under construction, uh, old ass apartments or buildings that were built there after the war and are still standing somehow, or it's grocery stores and defunct empty lots that no longer serve any purpose.
Or a
Those are
bit.
the other.
No, there's a fourth one that has been huge since I left, and I still don't understand it. All these old lots and all these old places, they're turning them all into car washes. Like, it's insane. Like, since I've left, I'm sure they've built like 10 car washes, and there was already probably 25 in the area. Like, if there's an old building or a spot where you can put a business, a car wash is going there. No joke. It's crazy.
Hey man, when you got that much dust blowing, you got to be able to keep your car clean. Good business practice. Know your demographics. Next, they'll open up paint shops right next to the car washes. So when your car is finally stripped clean of paint from being sandblasted over the course of 25 years, you can go in and get a new paint job. That's our entrepreneur idea. Joel, we could totally open a paint shop up there. We'd be rich. We, have to give it a couple of years for, the customer to start rolling in. But we could work this out. We could hash out the details. But let's do it. Let's
Dude,
buy one of those empty lots and start a paint shop.
I don't know if you could pay me enough money to move back to Fargo, though. That's the problem. I don't think there's a dollar amount you could hit to make me and Debbie want to move back up there.
I can't think of a dollar amount off the top of my head that would be
Like,
within reason and enough to be
if
able
you
to move
if you gave me, let's just say $1 million, but I had to live there for like 2+ years, I'd probably say no. Honestly. Like, if it's like a mill for 5 years, I would probably say no.
Okay, what if we get you? What if I get you an entire apartment building for you to use as your own home? An entire apartment building, all to yourself.
How long do I have to stay there?
1 year. We'll give it 1 year.
I'd probably say no. Unless I get to keep the apartment complex and own it and then rent it out once I'm done. But if
Okay,
it's just,
you can sublet it.
I would definitely discuss that with my fiance. Like,
It's a definitely maybe, and that's
if I
good enough
can,
for me.
if I don't have to stay there long, and I can make money as soon as I leave, then it'd be more worth it. And for the FM area, like, obviously it's gonna hold a little place in my heart because that's where like I kind of not grew up, but post high school, like, kind of became an adult and learned a lot about the world. But there's so many things that went wrong when I was up in the area that it a wasn't a great place to be. There was
Fun
on
to
a
visit. Don't live there.
on a more serious note, like there were a couple of years that were just like incredibly lonely, and I didn't know where to go. I'm not a party guy. I'm not a go out to bars and drink person. So if you're that type of person, that's perfect. Like, perfect college town with NDSU. But if you're not like that and you don't know anyone there, it's just not a great place to be. Like, if
It's
you're
expanded so much in the last few years, and this is just to sound like an old soul. But from what I've heard from my parents over the years, is that compared to what it used to be to what it is now, it's changed so much that it's nigh unrecognizable. And I mean, granted, there's a few spots I still like to go to for old time's sake. The mall, it's not
West
bad.
Acres is it's fun
It's
to
expensive.
look around in.
The food court, the food court's pretty good.
Food
They got
court
some
is good.
decent food, but it's kind of expensive. Thunder Road, the mini golf and go courts,
That
go
place is
court,
fun.
go karts. Thunder Road's pretty fun. Lots of good memories there. And then I would say maybe just the Fargo Dome for Monster Jam. Those are probably about the few places that I would say, yeah, definitely for sure, 100% fun. Check those out. Other than that, Yeah, they say Fargo's almost unrecognizable to what it used to be.
And then um, I heard so much about like if you go any further west in North Dakota other than Fargo, like don't.
There's
Like
nothing.
the bigger towns, like all I've heard is complaining about how there's nothing there. Even in like the capital, but that's still like 3 hours away from Fargo, so you got to drive 3 hours of nothing to get there, and it's still not worth it from what I hear.
I drove out to, where was it, Bismarck? I think it was Bismarck or Jamestown, one of them. I think it was Bismarck. When I had some friends living out that way, and I was home on leave from the military in wintertime. So this is a
That
three
sounds awful.
factor. This is you have no idea. Um, but once you get past Fargo, there is literally nothing but
Yeah.
trees and small farms
Wait,
dotting the
wait,
landscape.
hold on. You saw trees?
At least three,
Okay.
maybe four, but it was a really small one, so it might have been a shrub. I'm not sure what the
I,
classification
I
was.
have a really bad joke that I'm not gonna say here, but I'll tell you after. I can't do it.
But yeah, I drove out to meet this friend for, it was like a day at that. And it was dead of winter, so I couldn't hardly see the road ahead of me, first of all. And then on top of that, coming back, once I got to about within 2 hours of Fargo, a wind advisory picked up, and I had to find a motel for the night to stay at because the wind was literally so bad that people were getting blown off the road into ditches. And so I was like, "What? All right, I'm gonna park at this motel." And I parked at the probably the seediest motel I could find, not by choice, I might add. This it didn't. It's not like I went on Google. Yeah, which one's the one that's got half a star? No, this was, I just saw a motel and I pulled in, and yeah, they were still using CRT box TVs in there, so that was pretty fun. And then when once I got out of the service and I was driving home, I road tripped north and came across, and yeah, once you hit I think it's the Wyoming North Dakota state line or whatever it is, when you moving east, that's
I,
it. Like, it took me a solid 2 days to get across the entire western half of the United States. And then
I,
once I hit North Dakota and then I hit the highway, 6 hours across the whole state in 6 hours. There's literally nothing.
I
There's nothing out there.
hate to say this, but I don't think Wyoming and North Dakota touch.
Is it Montana?
Montana and
Ah,
South
that's
Dakota,
what
I
it is.
believe, touch. But yeah, but
I've never
you
claimed to
guys
be
might
anything.
think Ian is over exaggerating. No, like from another witness, like there's nothing. It's just flat. There's nothing there. Like South Dakota, you eventually get to the Badlands, and then that's super cool. But North Dakota is just nothing. I have some family that lives out in western North Dakota, so whenever they had like a graduation, driving out there, and it's just nothing,
Perfect
straight
spot
up.
to live if you never want to be bothered by anybody, because the population of the whole state's like 800,000. So
Yes, or
it,
if you and like 200,000 of that is just Fargo,
yeah,
Fargo and West Fargo. Um, Also, if your favorite weather is wind, I highly recommend it's at the top of my list for places to live if you love wind. Me, wind, like I said, is my least favorite, and I'm not going to deal with wind advisories every other day. Today, it was like 15 miles an hour wind gusts, and whenever this happens, someone says, "Oh, it's really windy today," and in my head, I'm like, "Thank God I'm not in Fargo."
you don't even know.
uh, but yeah, that's kind of my take on what I thought of the FM area. I've been there once since I've moved to Wisconsin, and I I felt like I don't want to just completely crap on Fargo because I mean it does have a lot of perks, but just none of them are for me. But going back up there, it was just kind of like a hollow feeling, honestly. Debbie and I were driving up and we're both like we didn't feel happy to be back. We were just like, oh, like just want to
But we're
leave
here.
as soon as possible. But
It's Fargo is not a terrible city by any means. There are worse places to live. There's also a lot better places to live. Fargo is the big city for people who've never been to a big
I
city.
I
That
I
makes sense.
agree. Like that is the perfect example, which I think why a lot of people from like our area move to Fargo. Like, yeah, big college, but it's still it was about an hour and a half from home. So every other weekend I was driving back home to see my parents and grandparents. But it's big, but it's not like Chicago or the Twin Cities big. It's really big from being from a small town, going from just like a
Going
town
from a
of
town of
4,000
4,000. Yeah.
4,000 to Moorhead is like 68,000. So like that's a big jump for someone who's not used to that. And then Fargo is like 100,000 and they're super close. So it it's a good way to get adjusted to a kind of the
Bigger
city
city
life.
without getting thrown into the full clutches of a big city, so to speak. Because to be completely honest, yeah, there's some cities that you should just not go and live right away if you're from a small town. But Fargo's okay because you can get used to the sort of fast-paced rush of bigger city life without
And,
all of it smacking you in the face at once.
and then you can, if you just need to get away from it, it's like 15-minute drive and then you're back to just like calm. If you're driving
15
west,
minute drive and you're
nothing.
going, is there civilization out here?
If you're
People
driving
think there?
west, it's that case. If you're driving east, you have Minnesota that has more. But
Yeah, more as in you have more tiny little towns of 5 people along the highway.
yeah, but appreciate my time in Fargo. I just cannot see myself ever going back. Like I honestly might be living in Wisconsin the rest of my life. I love it here. It's been
The
such a
cheese there.
change, and I can go into that in a different video. I know recently we posted a short of me and Ian gushing over Wisconsin, but we can talk about that in another time. But we better end it, and first we will get to quotes.
You know what? Just because we were talking about Fargo, I'm looking up quotes from the movie Fargo.
Okay, I'll do mine then. From the Buddha, the mind is everything. What you think, you become.
Nice. That's wonderful. That's completely opposite of mine, which is a quote from Fargo, the movie, when they're talking to one of the dudes, and he's describing somebody, and he's like, he was a little guy, kind of funny looking, or just in a general kind of way, which is the most Midwest description I've ever heard and makes zero sense if you've never heard somebody describe someone else like that. Or just in a general kind of way. Nothing specific. He's just kind of a funny little guy. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure, I do know what you mean.
yeah, we definitely have to talk about Midwest life because I think that would be fun. But thank you guys for BSing with us today. Follow or subscribe to become a bud today. And we will see you next time when Ian tries to talk me into moving back to Fargo for a set amount of time for
When I
X
convinced
amount.
Joe to step outside during the windy days.
Uh, no, awful.
Tell your folks I says hi now.